All right, students, here we go. We're going to be talking about simplifying algebraic fractions in this pre-algebra lesson today. Specifically, we're going to be talking about two steps, or reviewing two steps, how to factor expressions, trinomials, binomials, either one, and then how to simplify based on a fraction setup. We didn't spend a lot of time on this in class, so I wanted to kind of review it. We're going to need the difference of two squares idea for some of this, where if you have a squared minus b squared, or any square number being subtracted by another square number, this will factor down to the addition of those two square roots and the subtraction of those two square roots. So a squared minus b squared becomes a plus b and a minus b. And if we were to use FOIL on this, we would cancel out the middle term. And that's what results in the difference of squares, or difference of two squares. So we're going to need that in our lesson today. Let's take a look at a couple examples here. Pulled some of these from your practice page. If you want to match them up, you can. So first I have for us x squared plus 4x, all being divided by x squared minus 9x. And sticking with our two steps here, I want you to look at factoring first. How can you factor? Can you factor out a term, a variable, a number, and then how can you simplify second? So step one is factor, step two is simplify. So looking at the top here, I see that I have x's in both terms. So I have two x's here with the x squared, and 4 is being multiplied by x. So if I factor out an x, it would look like this. And all that's on top of the fraction. I think that's going to be helpful because if we look at the denominator, or bottom part of the fraction, I see that they also have x squared and 9x being subtracted. We can factor out another x. I say that's helpful because then the x's on the outside will cancel out. You cannot just start canceling x's out because they're being combined with addition or subtraction. You can only do that if it's being multiplied. So let's go ahead and factor out the bottom here. So dividing or factoring out an x, puts it on the outside of the parentheses, leaves us x minus 9. So step one done, we're factored. I think we're going to go ahead and simplify now. The parentheses are used to show the addition, and we can't go again, cannot just simplify those out. But if it's on the outside being multiplied, x over x actually cancels out, and that equals 1. So that can be canceled out, or simplified, if you will. So that leaves us with x plus 4 and x minus 9. That's going to be it. That's going to be all we can do with that expression. So that's going to be your simplified answer. Let's take a look at the next one. I see x squared minus 4. I see the difference, and I see these are both squares. So I'm going to be looking at the difference of squares here to factor that. Since they don't share an x, we're not going to divide by an x. This will have to be simplified, or factored before we simplify, factored by using the difference of squares. So let's take a look at that. If I root the x squared, I get x. If I root the 4, I get 2. So I'm going to have x plus 2 and x minus 2 as my two binomials. X plus 2 still on bottom. Let's double check that with FOIL. If we go first times first, we get x squared. Outsides would be negative 2x. Insides would be positive 2x. And last would be negative 4. So the negative 2x and the positive 2x cancel out to 0, leaving us x squared minus 4. That's just to double check that we actually did our factoring correctly. Cool. Now next part is we're going to simplify, so x plus 2, and this would be in parentheses, it's not needed, but it would be. They would actually cancel out because x plus 2 over x plus 2 equals 1. Anything over itself equals 1. I know in class I joke about smiley face over smiley face equals 1. Anything over itself equals 1. So these cancel out, leaves us x minus 2. That's it. That's going to be our answer. Get this out of the way here. Got one more page for us. Couple more, a little bit more difficult examples. Next level learning here. Still going to stick with our steps. We're going to go factoring first and then simplifying second. And as you can see, the factoring has gotten a little bit more difficult. So let's look at this. We have n squared plus 7n plus 10, this being a trinomial. We're going to factor these down into binomials. You can use the California method like we talked about in class. You can use the logic that we talked about in class as well. Either one that you want to do, it's fine with me. I know this trinomial tells a story. I said that if the second sign is addition, you will have the same signs as the first. So I know they're both going to be addition here. So this sign dictates whether it's same or different, and then if they're the same, it's the same as the first. So we know that. So I'm going to set up some binomials here. We're going to go to binomials. They're both going to be plus. I also know that since I'm going with the first terms being multiplied, I'm going to go n and n because that's the only thing that will get n squared is n times n. For my second factors in my binomials, I'm looking at factors of 10 that add to be 7. So the factors of 10, well, 10 and 1 won't work. 2 and 5 would add to be 7, so that's what we're going to go with, 2 and 5. And now n squared plus 7n plus 10 is factored to n plus 2 times the quantity n plus 5. That's a good job. Next, let's look at our factoring for n squared plus 2n minus 15. Now, a little different here. We see this is subtraction, so that means it's going to be one of each. Let me set up my binomials again. And I know it's going to be one of each. I'm just going to go plus and minus here. Now, just like the top, the only way to get n squared is to multiply n. So let's go n and n. n times n is n squared. Now for the second factor, we're looking for factors of 15 that differ by 2. So something that multiplies to get 15 but differs by 2, subtracts to be 2 because they're different signs down here. I also see that I have more positives, so I want more positives in my factored binomials. I'm thinking 5 and 3. 5 times 3 would be 15. And 5 minus 3 would be 2. So we're going to go 5 on the positive and 3 on the negative. That's factored. So step 1, factor. Got it. We factored. Step 2, simplify. Now let's see, can we simplify any of these? We have n plus 2, no. N plus 5, n plus, ooh yeah, n plus 5 and n plus 5 will cancel out. That leaves us, if we simplify, we have n plus 2 over n minus 3. And that's going to be your simplified version there. Again, just to recap, we factored first and simplified second. Good job. Next one we're going to look at, and last one we're going to look at, is n squared minus 7n minus 18, keeping in mind that we're going to be factoring to binomials like we did on the previous example. I also see this kind of a reiterated point is difference of squares or difference of two squares. We have n squared minus 4. They're both square numbers or square variables, and they're being subtracted. So let's take a look at how that one would shake out. We got to factor the top first. I'm going to go to binomials here. I see this sign indicates that they are different in the binomial. Subtraction means different. Add means the same as the first. So we'll go 1 plus, 1 minus. I see the first terms are in fact going to have to be n because n times n is the only way to get n squared. And then last terms in our binomials are going to be factors of 18 that differ by 7. But also notice that we have more negatives on the 7. So whatever number is larger, I'm going to put it with the subtraction or the negative sign here. So it multiplies to get 18 and subtracts to be 7, or differs by 7. I'm thinking 9 and 2. If I put 9, I'll have more negatives. 2, I think that works. Let's check it. N squared, negative 9, positive 2 makes negative 7, and finally negative 18. First, outside, inside, last, FOIL. Looks good. For n squared minus 4, we're looking at difference of squares. So let's go something plus and something minus. Square root of n squared is n. Square root of 4 is 2. That's the difference of squares, or difference of 2 squares. Now let's simplify. I see n plus 2, those are going to cancel out. That leaves us n minus 9 and n minus 2 as our answer. N minus 9, n minus 2. Looks good, guys. That's going to be it for the video. Let me know in private comments if you need some help, or if you need to email me, that's fine too. Thanks a lot.